Now, a new book has revealed a blunt request made by the late Queen Elizabeth to former US President Barack Obama made at a state dinner. So author Valentine Lowe revealed in the book Power and the Palace that during a state dinner in 2011, Queen Elizabeth decided that the Buckingham Palace banquet had gone on long enough. And the claim is that the Queen actually asked British Finance Minister at the time to tell Barack Obama that it is time to go to bed. Look, is this true? What do you make of this?
Oh, it's glorious. This is Her Majesty all over. And what a wonderful lady she was. We've all been at those dinner parties where the guests just refuse to leave. And it was past midnight. This particular story, Valentine Lowe's brilliant Power in the Palace, all sorts of revelations, but some of which I've heard before. But basically, it was a state dinner in 2011, and Her Majesty was brilliant at having these state dinners, but they can drag on. And apparently, it was after midnight, and she turned to George Osborne, who was the Chancellor of the Exchequer at that stage, and said, "Will you tell President Obama it's time to go to bed?" And so they worked on that sort of basis, and I'm sure that was true, and they worked on that sort of things. But George Osborne, he recalls that actually he didn't want to go over to President Obama, but what happened? He had a particular aide, the Queen's private secretary, said, "Don't worry, we're handling the situation." So an interesting revelation. It won't be the first time that's happened, and I had the joy of meeting Her Majesty on a few occasions, and also Prince Philip, they were the brilliant double act. And I was introduced to Her Majesty and said, "This is Andrew Eborn. He's a barrister and also a magician," because I perform as well on that sort of basis. And Her Majesty said, "Oh, how nice." And Prince Philip came up to me, same introduction, but he sort of looked at me and said, "Well, I bet that's good for pulling the birds," is what he said. He was notoriously good for those little quips, and they were also the perfect double act. But Her Majesty, she wouldn't like the fact that people spoke about her private discussions. She always wanted to keep that secret, in the same way she sort of kept her private discussions about politics. She had lots of very strong views, but the idea was that the monarch's always above politics, so shouldn't be quoting things publicly.
Well, it's interesting because also in this Valentine Lowe book, it uncovers a secret relationship between the monarchy and the government. So, and also reveals what the Queen Elizabeth thought around Brexit. What can you tell us?
Well, she basically didn't want to. She said that she thought that we shouldn't be leaving the EU. She thought it's better the devil you know. She's had those conversations with a number of ministers. Again, as I say, the Queen was above politics and wouldn't want those views publicly known. The vote went against her wishes, and we voted here in the UK for Brexit. And it's very interesting because in the Queen's speech, when they have basically at the opening of every parliament, they turn around and the Queen reads out, "This is what my parliament's going to do." And obviously they had the relevant law to do with leaving the EU. What I loved about it, the wonderful optics, if you look back at the picture, during that particular speech, she wore a glorious floral blue hat with little yellow petals in it as well, which so resembled the EU flag that you could basically see these were her real views. And I think that wonderful sense of humour was coming through there. But she was definitely not for leaving the EU. That seems to be confirming the reports. Even though she didn't say it publicly, a lot of people turned around and reported that those were her views.
Finally, before I let you go, Prince William and Princess Catherine's first official outing since their appearance at Wimbledon back in July has been confirmed. They're set to visit the Natural History Museum, of which the Princess is a patron. What's going to happen here?
Well, what's going to happen? September the 4th, so tomorrow over here in the UK, it's going to be, as you say, their first official outing since Wimbledon. Wimbledon's a few months ago, 7 months ago, on that sort of basis. Sorry, 7 weeks ago, not 7 months, 7 weeks ago. And what's going to happen? She's going to go to the Natural History Museum. It is their first official outing. They're going to engage with children, apparently, about biodiversity projects and so on and so forth. And it's going to be a return to public duties. People adore, particularly Princess Catherine. They're going to be absolutely delighted. I'm sure the papers and other media will be swamped with images of that particular engagement.
Absolutely. Andrew Eborn, UK barrister and broadcaster. It is brilliant to speak to you as always. Thank you so much for joining us.
A real pleasure, Gabriella. Looking forward to the next time.